Let's get some more analysis of developments in Lebanon now. I'm joined by our international affairs editor, Armen Georgian. Armen, the probe that was supposed to establish who is responsible, who should be held accountable, hasn't made a huge amount of progress there in Lebanon. I think that's something of an understatement. Apart from the Lebanese investigation, are there some other options, perhaps, that the country could pursue?
There are other options. In fact, two prominent international human rights groups have issued a joint statement saying that it is clear more than ever that the domestic investigation cannot deliver justice. And they go on to say that an international investigation may be the only hope for the millions of Lebanese people to get the answers they deserve. But for such an international investigation to start, it would have to be activated by a member of the UN Human Rights Council. And logically, one could expect France, which is currently a member, to pursue that role, given how mobilized France was straight after the blast 2 years ago, and given that the French government has always said that it stands by the Lebanese people. But interestingly, in an interview with L'Orient Le Jour, the newspaper, on the occasion of the second anniversary, President Macron of France stresses in this interview that the stalled national probe should continue its work, and he also stresses that France has been cooperating with the Lebanese justice authorities. So he's really focusing on the domestic investigation and saying that he hopes that that will be something that can get off the ground again. He doesn't seem very keen in that interview, or at least it doesn't appear that way, that he's interested in really internationalizing the probe in the way that Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International have set out.
Yeah, indeed. And domestically, the probe has been marred by accusations of partiality and bias and everything else. And of course, today, a very sad reminder of what happened in Lebanon 2 years ago. Since then, for the average Lebanese person, matters seem to have gone from bad to even worse.
Well, we now have 8 out of 10 Lebanese living in poverty. You've got this inflation of 154% and a currency collapse, and a collapse, as we can see in these pictures, of 2 major wheat silos. So a very symbolic moment there, that smoke billowing near the site of the explosion in the port of Beirut this afternoon, and really a kind of symbol of the this decay, the smell of fermented wheat, somehow symbolizing the political decay in the country as well. Just to quickly describe what's actually happening on the political scene now. So basically, Lebanon has been without a government since May, and there are now warnings of even greater deadlock if a successor to President Aoun is not found. His term ends on October the 31st, but in any case, it's very hard to see within the current political deadlock how Parliament would pass the reforms needed to activate an international monetary fund bailout. So for a good 2 years now, international donors have signaled that they're willing to help, they're willing to give loans, but they keep saying that that can only happen once Lebanon starts these big reforms, particularly restructuring its banking sector and restructuring its debt. So that is still something that has to happen, and before there are these reforms, then presumably the international donors will not be able to really invest themselves much in Lebanon.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for that, Armen. Armen Georgian, our international affairs editor, and as we've been saying, we were looking at live pictures there of the wheat silos, 2 of which have just collapsed today on the second anniversary of that explosion in Beirut.